My father secretly married his mistress, moved her into the house I inherited from my dead mother. But when she insulted her memory and I discovered the decades-long affair, I legally evicted them. They sued me for millions. And now he came back destroyed, begging for forgiveness. I'm 25 years old. I work from home doing graphic design. And about 4 months ago, my life turned into complete chaos because of my father and his new wife. Well, not so new because it turns out they'd known each other for decades. But I found that out later. The thing is, I inherited this house when I was 16, after my mom died of cancer. And it's a huge house, like ancestral type, with 7 bedrooms and like 8 bathrooms or more. I don't know, I never counted them all. It has a giant basement, a yard with a pool, and basically it's the type of property you don't normally leave to a teenager, but my mom was like that, super practical and direct, and she knew exactly what she was doing when she put everything in my name. My dad, who's 52 years old and works as an engineer, kept living here with me after mom died, because I was a minor and all that, but it was always clear that the house was mine. Amy, my mom's lawyer, made sure everything was super specific in the will. She even explained everything to me when I turned 18, so there wouldn't be any confusion. It wasn't weird or anything because my parents were always honest about these things, or so I thought. And the truth is, my dad never made drama about it. We lived well, each with our own space. He respected that it was my property, and I gave him all the freedom in the world because, he's my father. Things started to change about 5 months ago when my dad told me he was going on a 2-week business trip. It didn't seem strange to me because he travels quite a bit for work. So I told him, no problem, take care. The normal things you tell someone who's going on a trip? I have a Cocker Spaniel named Moxie. I adopted her like 3 years ago, and she and I basically stayed alone those 2 weeks, doing our normal routine, working from home, going out to the yard, nothing out of the ordinary. When my dad came back, he arrived with a woman he introduced as Steph, his wife. Just like that. Wife. I was, like what? Because I literally didn't know he was dating anyone. He never mentioned anything about any girlfriend or anything like that. Steph was 51 years old. My dad said she was his high school girlfriend, his high school sweetheart, or whatever you want to call it, and that they'd reconnected a few months ago through Facebook or something. That already seemed weird to me, Because my dad had never talked to me about her in all these years, not even when mom was alive, which should have seemed like a giant red flag to me, but, well, I was in shock. But wait, because it gets better. Turns out Steph didn't come alone. She brought her twin daughters, Lizzie and Lexi, who were 20 years old and in college. And she also brought 2 dogs that according to her were trained, but clearly they weren't. And when I say they moved in, I mean they arrived with suitcases, boxes, furniture, everything. My dad basically informed me that they were already married, that they'd gotten married, on that trip that was supposedly for business, and that now everyone was going to live here. I just stood there in the living room thinking, is this for real? Are you telling me you got secretly married and brought a whole family to live in my house without even asking me? I tried to be civil at first. I really tried. I told my dad we needed to talk privately, and he told me later that now he had to help Steph and the twins get settled in. That night, I tried to have a serious conversation with him, but he basically told me that Steph had gone through tough times financially, that she'd lost her house or something, and that as a family we should support her. I responded, Dad, she's not my family. I didn't even know her until literally 3 hours ago. And he got upset and told me I was being selfish, that the house was huge and there was room for everyone. The first few days were uncomfortable but manageable, I guess. The twins, Lizzie and Lexi, settled into 2 of the bedrooms on a second floor. Steph and my dad obviously stayed in the master bedroom where my dad already slept, and I kept my space in the other wing of the house. But then Steph started with her demands. One day she came to my room, knocked on the door like twice and came in without waiting for an answer, and told me she needed space in my closet because the one in the master bedroom wasn't enough for all her clothes. I told her no, that was my private space. And she looked at me like I was the crazy one and said something like, well, I guess I'll have to pile everything up then. In that passive-aggressive tone that makes you want to scream. The twins didn't help either. They started using the pool without asking permission, left towels and trash everywhere, went into the kitchen and ate things without asking, used my bathroom stuff, like my expensive shampoo and my skincare products that aren't cheap, Once I found Lexi, or maybe it was Lizzie. The truth is, I never learned to tell them apart well, using my laptop without permission because hers was supposedly dead. I asked them politely to respect my things and my space, and they told me I was overreacting, that we were family now and families shared everything. But the worst part, what really started to drive me crazy, were Steph's dogs. They weren't trained at all. They did their business in the house, barked at all hours, and one of them, a big German shepherd, was super aggressive. Moxie is the sweetest little dog in the world. She's never hurt anyone, and those dogs attacked her twice. The first time I managed to separate them quickly, but Moxie was terrified. And the second time, the German shepherd bit her paw, and I had to take her to the vet. I told Steph her dogs needed training or they had to keep them in certain areas of the house, and she told me Moxie was the one provoking them, that her dogs were angels and I was being dramatic. My dad, of course, said nothing, just stood there without defending me or Moxie. I think the breaking point started about 3 weeks after they arrived. I came downstairs one morning and saw that all the family photos that were in the living room, the photos of my mom with me, of our family before she died, all had been removed and replaced with photos of Steph and the twins. There was a giant photo of Steph and my dad, from their secret wedding hanging right where my parents' wedding anniversary portrait used to be. I stood there feeling the rage rising through my whole body. My hands were shaking, and I went straight to find Steph. I found her in the kitchen drinking coffee like nothing, and I asked her, "Who gave you permission to remove the photos of my mom?" She looked at me with that fake innocent face and said, "Oh, I thought it would be better for everyone if we started fresh, without living in the past." I told her to put the photos back immediately, and she sighed and said something I'll never forget. She said, "Your dad needs to move on. He can't stay stuck with memories of a bad, useless mother who couldn't even stay alive to raise you." She literally said that, called my mom who died of cancer after fighting for 2 years, a bad, useless mother. I don't remember exactly what happened next because I basically saw red, but I know I screamed. I know I probably said horrible things, and I know my dad came running down the stairs asking what was happening. I told him what Steph had said about mom, and he, instead of defending me or defending my mom's memory, told me to calm down, that Steph hadn't meant that I was misinterpreting things. That was it. That's when my patience ran out. I told everyone to get out of my house, that they had to leave, and my dad told me I was being ridiculous, that I couldn't just kick them out like that. I told him, "Dad, it's my house. I inherited it from Mom. It's in my name, and I want Steph, the twins, and those dogs out right now." He responded that he had nowhere to go, that he couldn't leave them on the street, and I said, "You should have thought about that before bringing them here without my permission. You have to choose, either them or me." I thought he was going to choose me. I thought he was going to understand. But he stayed quiet, and in that silence I understood everything. I went up to my room, grabbed the phone and called Amy, the lawyer. Amy gave me an appointment at her office the next day and I told her everything. She reviewed the inheritance documents, confirmed that the house was completely in my name, that my dad had no legal rights to the property, and explained that I could give them a formal eviction notice. She asked me if I was sure, if I didn't want to think about it a bit more, and I told her, yes, that I was completely sure. That afternoon, I arrived home with the formal eviction notice. 30 days for everyone to get out of my property. When I gave the papers to my dad, he went pale. Steph, of course, started screaming that I was a spoiled brat, that I couldn't do this to them, that they had left everything to come here. The twins stayed quiet. I think they finally understood that things had gotten out of control. My dad begged me to reconsider, to give him more time, and I told him no, that the time had run out when he allowed Steph to disrespect my mom's memory in her own house. During the next 2 weeks, I did what Amy recommended. I hired a locksmith and changed all the locks in the house. Although I wasn't going to use them until they left, I installed a security system with cameras everywhere, and I stored all my mom's valuables, her jewelry, important documents, photos. I put everything in a safe deposit box at the bank. Gabriel, my boyfriend who comes from a normal middle-class family and had never seen so much family drama, helped me with all that. He basically stayed with me those weeks because he didn't want me to be alone. Around day 25, something happened that changed everything completely. I was cleaning the attic looking for more of my mom's things to store when I found an old box with letters. They were love letters, The kind people wrote before text messages existed, and when I started reading them, I realized they were between my dad and Steph. Letters from like 27 years ago, when my parents were already married, when I was a baby. My dad and Steph had had an affair that lasted years according to what I read. And in the letters, they talked about leaving together, leaving their respective families, starting over. There was one specific letter, I think from my dad to Steph, where he said he couldn't leave my mom because she had just been diagnosed with a medical condition, not cancer yet, but something serious, and that he would be a monster if he left her at that moment. Another letter from Steph said she understood but would wait for him, that she would always love him. Basically, my dad had been cheating on my mom during the first years of their marriage, and my mom probably never knew, or maybe she did and decided to forgive him. I don't know. I'll never know because she's not here anymore to ask. I came down from the attic with those letters in my hand, feeling like I was going to throw up. I confronted my dad that same night. I literally threw the letters in his face and asked him, "Is this real? Did you have an affair with Steph while you were married to Mom?" He just sat there, unable to say anything for a moment, and then admitted everything. He said yes, that they had been together, that they had loved each other since high school, but circumstances had separated them, that he had married my mom and Steph had married someone else, but they never stopped loving each other. He explained that when my mom got sick, he decided to end the affair to take care of her, that he felt guilty his whole life, but that when Steph reappeared on Facebook a few months ago, all those feelings came back. I asked him if Mom knew, and he told me no, that she never knew, that he made sure she never found out. He also told me that Steph had lost all her money in bad investments or something, that she was basically bankrupt, and that when they reconnected, she confessed she had nowhere to live. That's why they got married so quickly and why he brought her here. Basically, he married her out of pity and nostalgia and brought her to live in the house that my mom left us, the mom he cheated on for years. Steph also admitted everything when I confronted her. In fact, she seemed almost proud of her love story with my dad. She told me that she and my dad were destined to be together, that my mom had just been an obstacle, that now they could finally be happy. I told her to get out of my mom's house immediately, that I wouldn't wait the 30 days, to leave that same day. And she responded that she had nowhere to go, that she needed time, that I couldn't throw her out on the street with her daughters like that. The last days before they left were a total nightmare. Steph started taking things from the house, things that weren't hers, and when I confronted her, she said she had a right to some compensation for everything she had suffered, waiting for my dad all these years. She tried to take my mom's jewelry, some antique candlesticks that were my grandmother's, even an original painting my mom had inherited from her family. I had to call the police to do an inventory of everything and make sure she didn't take anything that wasn't hers. The twins apologized to me privately, said they didn't know anything about the affair, that their mom had told them my dad was a widower who had fallen in love with her after years, and that they just wanted a place to live while they finished college. And when they finally left, like 2 days before the 30 days were up, I thought it was all over. My dad left with them. They went to live in a small apartment my dad rented with his salary, and I stayed alone in this giant house with Moxie. I changed the locks as I'd planned, activated the security system, and tried to get on with my life. Gabriel practically moved in with me because he didn't want me to be alone after all that, and honestly, I don't know what I would have done without him. But Steph didn't end there. About 3 weeks after they left, I received a legal notice. Steph and my dad were suing me, claiming they had a right to part of the property's value because my dad had contributed to the house's maintenance for years, and because Steph had suffered emotional distress from the way I treated them. Basically, they wanted money, a lot of money, or a part of the house. Amy, my lawyer, laughed when I showed her the documents, literally laughed and said it was the most ridiculous case she'd seen in years. But we still had to go to court. The legal process lasted about 2.5 months. It was horrible, having to relive everything, explain the whole story to the judge, show the letters from the affair, explain how they had invaded my house without permission. My dad didn't even look at me during the hearings. He sat next to Steph with his head down. The twins weren't included in the lawsuit. I think they realized how absurd all this was. The judge finally dismissed the case completely, validated that the house was completely mine according to my mom's will, and told my dad and Steph they had no legal basis for their claims. He also warned them that if they filed frivolous lawsuits again, they could face sanctions. I thought that was the end. I really did. But about 2 months ago, Exactly 2 months after the judge's decision, my dad showed up at the house door with all his stuff in his truck. He told me Steph had cheated on him, that he'd found messages from her with another man, someone with money apparently, and that she had kicked him out of the apartment he was paying for. He told me the twins had gone to live with some relatives, that everything had fallen apart, and he asked me if he could stay here temporarily, just until he found another place. I stood there looking at him. This man who's my father, who raised my mother while cheating on her, who brought his mistress to live in my mom's house, who sued me for money, and who was now here asking for help. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, tell him to leave and never come back. But another part, the part that still remembers him playing with me when I was a kid, teaching me to ride a bike, helping me with my homework, that part couldn't do it. I told him he could stay, but with conditions. First condition, family therapy. Both of us had to go to therapy together to work through all this. Second condition, absolute respect. This is my house and my rules are respected without discussion. Third condition, no contact with Steph. I don't want her near this property ever again. He accepted everything. And now we've been about a month and a half trying to rebuild something. I don't know if to call it a father-daughter, relationship, or what, but we're trying. Therapy is difficult, super difficult, because we have to talk about Mom, about the affair, about all the lies, about how his decisions affected my life. My dad has cried in several sessions, has admitted he ruined everything by clinging to a love from the past that was more fantasy than reality, that Steph turned out not to be the person he remembered, and that he basically destroyed his relationship with me for someone who didn't even really love him. I've also cried a lot. I've screamed. I've said horrible things I probably shouldn't have said but needed to get out. Gabriel asked me last week if I thought my dad and I could ever have a normal relationship again. And the truth is, I don't know. I don't know if I can fully forgive him for cheating on my mom, for disrespecting her memory by bringing Steph here, for suing me. But I also know he's my dad, the only father I have, and that he's genuinely sorry about everything, or so it seems in therapy at least. Yesterday I found some old photos from when I was like 5 years old. Photos of my parents together with me, before I knew there was an affair, lies, betrayals. We looked happy in those photos, like a normal family, and I wondered if Mom was happy at that moment or if she already knew what was happening and was just pretending for me. I'll never know, and that's what hurts the most. That I'll never be able to ask her. I'll never know her version of the story. I'll never know if she would have told me the truth someday. The twins sent me a message about 2 weeks ago, apologizing again. They told me their mom had disappointed them too, that they discovered she'd lied about many things, not just about the affair but about other things in her life. They told me if I ever wanted to get to know them better, like have a sister relationship or at least be friends, they'd be open to that. I haven't responded to them yet because I don't know what to say. I don't know if I want to have any kind of relationship with them or if that would be too weird. My dad still lives here. He has his own bedroom on the other end of the house. He works from home some days just like me, and basically we move around each other trying not to collide. Some nights we have dinner together and talk about superficial things, about work, the weather, about Moxie who finally got used to having him back. Other nights each of us stays in our space and we don't see each other until the next day. It's weird, it's uncomfortable, but I guess it's a start. The house feels different now, emptier somehow even though my dad is here. Sometimes I go down the stairs and expect to see my mom in the kitchen making coffee or in the living room reading a book, and then I remember she's not there, that she'll never be there, and that this house she left me is now filled with good and bad memories mixed together. Amy told me recently that I should feel proud of having defended my property and my boundaries, that many people don't have the courage to do what I did, but the truth is, I don't feel proud. I just feel tired. I don't know what's going to happen with my dad and me long term. The therapist says healing takes time, that there's no specific calendar for forgiving or for rebuilding trust, and that it's okay if we never get to have the relationship we had before because that relationship was built on partial lies. I guess he's right. I guess what we're building now, whatever it is, at least it's built on truths, however painful they may be. Gabriel asks me sometimes if I regret letting my dad come back, and the truth is, some days yes. Some days I think I should have closed the door on him and moved on with my life without him. But other days I see him sitting in the yard looking at the pool where he used to play with me when I was a kid, and I see an old, regretful man who lost his wife, almost lost his daughter, and was used by someone who claimed to love him, and those days I think maybe we all deserve a second chance, even when we're not sure if we really deserve it.